My boyfriend is taking me to Paris. Want to meet up there? She had no idea I could see her Apple Watch notifications. I canceled her return flight and arranged for him to meet her in Spain instead. Now she's asking me to take her back. My name is Daniel. I am 32 and work in commercial real estate development in Chicago. My weeks are structured and busy, mostly office meetings and site visits, and I tend to plan my personal life the same way I plan projects. I live downtown, keep a consistent routine, and I am not impulsive with money or relationships. My girlfriend is Ava, 29, a marketing consultant who works remotely. We have been together for just under 2 years and living together for 8 months in my condo. We split groceries and utilities, but the mortgage is mine. We travel a few times a year, and I usually handle the bookings because I like logistics done properly. From the beginning, Ava had a sharp personality. Confident, direct, sometimes abrasive. She called it being honest. I saw it as manageable. She could be dismissive if she thought someone was boring, and she had a habit of framing generosity as something she deserved rather than appreciated. I addressed it early and told her I would not stay in a dynamic where I felt taken for granted. She said I was too sensitive. We moved forward anyway. Last month, I booked a trip to Paris for her birthday. It was not spontaneous. I used airline miles, reserved a hotel near the Seine, and planned dinners. I told her about it 3 weeks before departure so she could arrange her work schedule. She reacted the way she reacts to most nice things. Excited, but in a way that felt transactional. As if the trip was proof that I was performing at the right level. A week before we left, we were on the couch after dinner. She was in the shower and had left her Apple Watch charging on the kitchen counter. I was clearing plates when the screen lit up with a message preview. I was not trying to snoop. It was directly in my line of sight. The notification showed a name I recognized. Her ex, Marcus. And the message preview was not neutral. The full message came in a few seconds later. My boyfriend is taking me to Paris. Want to meet up there? There was a winking emoji at the end. That detail mattered more than I expected. I stood there for a moment, not touching the watch, just reading what was visible on the screen. I knew Marcus. Not personally, but enough. They dated for 3 years. He cheated. She described him as immature and unreliable. She also said she had blocked him. I did not pick up the watch. I did not scroll. I did not unlock anything. The notification alone was enough context. She had initiated contact. And it was not neutral contact. It was an invitation. When she came out of the shower, I was back on the couch. I did not confront her immediately. I prefer clarity over emotional reactions. If I was going to address it, I wanted to do it once. About 10 minutes later, her watch lit up again. Another preview. He responded. Depends. You sharing the hotel? She laughed from the kitchen, looking at her phone, not knowing what I had seen. That laugh told me the tone of the conversation. Playful, not hostile, not closure, not accidental. At that point, I was not confused. I was done. I do not argue over obvious disrespect. We live together. I am funding the trip. She is inviting her ex to intersect with it. There is no gray area there. Instead of confronting her that night, I asked a neutral question. Are you excited about Paris? She said obviously. Why would I not be? I asked if there was anything or anyone she wanted to see while we were there. She said no, just the usual tourist stuff. She maintained eye contact while saying it. Calm. Convincing. That was the moment I understood something clearly. She was comfortable lying directly to my face without hesitation. So I adjusted my plans. The next morning, I went into my office early and closed the door. I did not tell anyone at work what I was doing. I opened the airline confirmation email and reviewed the booking. 2 round-trip tickets. Chicago to Paris. Same return date. Same reservation. Because I had booked with miles through my account, I had full control. I could modify or cancel either ticket without her involvement. I did not act out of anger. I acted out of alignment with reality. If she wanted to invite her ex into the trip, I was not going to compete for space in it. First, I canceled her return flight only. I left the departure intact. That meant she would still fly to Paris as planned. She would not immediately suspect anything. The refund for the return portion went back into my miles account. Then I searched Marcus. He lives in Barcelona now. I knew that from previous stories she told about him finding himself in Europe. It took about 10 minutes to confirm through public social media. Barcelona to Paris is a short flight. So is Barcelona to Madrid. Spain was flexible. I did not need perfection. I needed inevitability. I booked a one-way ticket for her from Paris to Barcelona 3 days into the trip. Same name. Same passport details I had from our prior travel. I forwarded the confirmation to an email address she rarely checks, an old Gmail she used for discount codes. I knew she would not see it immediately. My logic was simple. If she was comfortable inviting him to Paris on my dime, she could experience what that invitation actually costs. That evening she asked if we should make restaurant reservations in advance. I told her I had handled it. Technically, I had. We landed in Paris on a Thursday morning. The flight was uneventful. She slept against the window, and I reviewed a site proposal on my laptop. Nothing outwardly tense. I was not cold or distant. I simply observed. At the hotel check-in, she made a comment about how the room was smaller than she expected. It was a boutique place near the Seine, exactly as described in the listing. I reminded her gently that we were in central Paris, not a resort. She rolled her eyes and said I was defensive. That dynamic had been present before. She would diminish something. I would clarify. She would accuse me of overreacting. It used to frustrate me. Now it just confirmed my assessment. On the second night, we had dinner reservations. She spent most of it on her phone under the table. I could see the faint reflection of a messaging screen in the wine glass. I did not need to guess who it was. The next morning, day 3, I told her I had booked a surprise activity and she would need to pack a smaller bag. She looked excited for the first time on the trip. She assumed I had planned something romantic outside the city. I told her we would head to the airport after breakfast. She asked why. I said plans shifted slightly. She did not question it deeply. She trusted that I was managing logistics, because I always do. At the airport, I handed her the printed boarding pass. Paris to Barcelona. She looked confused. I thought we were staying here all week. I told her calmly that I figured since she invited Marcus to meet in Paris, it would be more efficient for her to meet him closer to where he lives. Her face changed immediately. Not guilt first. Anger. How did you know? I explained about the Apple Watch notification. I kept my tone level. I told her I do not tolerate being publicly or privately disrespected. She said it was a joke. I said adults do not joke like that with exes while living with someone else. The flight was boarding. I handed her the ticket, and I walked away. I did not look back once I left the gate. I went straight to the airline counter and confirmed my own return flight to Chicago for the original date. I also upgraded my seat. There was no reason to sit in discomfort on a flight home after what was already settled in my mind. My phone started vibrating before I even reached the taxi line outside the airport. Calls, texts, then longer texts. First she said I was insane. Then she said I misunderstood. Then she said I embarrassed her in public. Not once did she open with an apology. So I blocked her. Not temporarily. Not as a tactic. I removed her number, blocked her on messaging apps, and disabled location sharing. If someone is capable of that level of casual disrespect, I am not interested in negotiating in real time while they panic about consequences. I do not debate obvious boundaries. I booked a car into the city and turned my phone to airplane mode anyway. Silence felt cleaner than watching her cycle through reactions. On the flight home, I reviewed the practical steps. We live together, but the condo is solely in my name. She has no legal claim to the property. Her name is not on the mortgage or title. That simplified things. By the time we landed in Chicago, I had already emailed building management. I requested temporary deactivation of her key fob and told them I would provide an updated resident list the following day. It is a secure building, so access is controlled. I was not going to create a dramatic confrontation in the lobby. When I got home, I packed her belongings methodically. Clothes into garment bags, toiletries into boxes, laptop and personal documents placed separately so nothing could be accused of being withheld or damaged. I recorded a short video walkthrough of everything for documentation. This was not revenge. It was procedure. By the time she landed in Spain, she no longer had access to my home. She landed in Barcelona about 9 hours after I landed in Chicago. I know that because I briefly unblocked her number to confirm delivery of one final message. I kept it short and factual. Your belongings are packed and documented. Building access has been removed. Coordinate a pickup time next week and I will have the boxes brought down. Then I blocked her again. Within an hour, she emailed me instead. Subject line was, "Are you serious?" The tone had shifted. Less anger. More panic. She said she had nowhere permanent to go. She said she thought we would talk when she got back. She said I overreacted to what was just texting. She repeated that it was a joke. She also added that Marcus had not actually agreed to meet. That part was almost ironic. I responded once by email, so there would be a written record. Inviting an ex to intersect with a trip funded by your partner is not a joke. It is a decision. I do not stay in relationships where that decision feels normal. I also clarified something practical. She had access to her own savings. She works remotely. She has family in another state. She was not financially dependent on me. Living in my condo had reduced her expenses, but she was not stranded. She replied with something different this time. Can you just let me come home and we will reset? That word reset stood out, as if this was a software glitch instead of a character reveal. I told her no, calmly, directly. I am not interested in resetting to a version of this where I monitor whether you are bored enough to message someone from your past. She accused me of being cold. Maybe I am, but cold is better than naive. At that point, I stopped replying. 3 days later, she messaged from a different email asking if I would at least pay for her flight back to Chicago. I did not respond to that either. A week passed without direct contact. She stayed in Barcelona longer than the 2 nights I had booked. I know that because she tried to send me a shared photo album link. I did not open it. I deleted the request. What had reached me was indirect. A mutual friend texted asking what happened. Apparently, Ava had told people I abandoned her overseas during a fight. She left out the part about inviting her ex to Paris. That did not surprise me. People rarely narrate their own role accurately when they are trying to preserve image. I replied to the friend with a single sentence. She invited Marcus to meet her on a trip I paid for. I attached a screenshot of the Apple Watch notification that I had taken before we left Chicago. I am not careless with evidence. The friend responded with a simple understood. No follow-up questions. That was enough. I am not interested in a public campaign. Just clarity where necessary. 2 days later, Ava emailed again. Different tone entirely. She said she made a mistake. She said she felt insecure because I seemed emotionally distant lately. She said messaging Marcus was a way to feel wanted. She said she never intended to follow through. I did not analyze it. I did not debate it. I blocked her email. There is a point where explanations stop being useful. Once someone demonstrates that their response to insecurity is to triangulate with a former partner, the internal reasoning does not matter to me. Whether she meant to meet him or not was secondary to the fact that she opened that door willingly. Blocking her email was not dramatic. It was procedural. I set a filter that automatically deleted anything from her address. I also adjusted my phone settings to silence unknown numbers. I am not interested in iterative apologies. If there is something logistical to coordinate, she can contact the building concierge to arrange pickup of her belongings. That channel remains open. Personal access does not. 3 days after I blocked her email, the concierge informed me she had scheduled a time to collect her boxes. That was the next interaction, and it was in person. She scheduled the pickup for a Tuesday at 2 p.m. Midday. Predictable. I adjusted my work calendar so I would be home, but not idle. Before she arrived, I moved all of her boxes into the building's secured package room. I labeled each one clearly. Clothing, shoes, office equipment, personal documents. I also printed a simple inventory list and signed it. Not because I expected legal drama, but because clarity prevents revisionist storytelling. When she walked into the lobby, I watched through the security camera feed on my phone. I did not go downstairs immediately. I let the concierge check her ID and confirm the appointment. I did not want this to feel like a hallway argument. After a few minutes, I went down. She looked different. Not devastated. Not reflective. More irritated than anything else. Her first sentence was not an apology. It was, "You really went through with this." I told her yes. She said I overreacted. She said couples work through things. She said sending her to Spain was dramatic and petty. I told her something simple. Inviting your ex into our trip was the dramatic part. My response was administrative. That annoyed her more than if I had yelled. She asked if I was seeing someone else. I said no. She asked if this was about control. I said it was about standards. She then shifted tone again. Softer. She said she missed home. She said Barcelona was lonely. She said Marcus was not even worth the coffee she ended up having with him. That was new information. She had met him after all. I did not react outwardly. I told her I hoped that clarified things for you. She looked at me for a long moment, like she expected negotiation. There was none. The concierge brought out a cart with her boxes. That was the closest thing to closure we were going to have. She signed the inventory sheet without reading it closely. That detail did not surprise me. She has always skimmed structure and focused on narrative. Before she left, she tried one more angle. She asked if I ever actually loved her. It was framed as a challenge, but it was really a probe. If I said yes, it would open space for reconsideration. If I said no, it would make me the villain. I answered honestly. I did. That is why I do not tolerate being disrespected. She shook her head like that was a contradiction. For her, intensity equaled endurance. For me, commitment equals standards. She said most men would have just fought about it. She said canceling her return ticket and blocking her was extreme. I told her most men are not my benchmark. There was a pause. Not dramatic. Just empty. She asked if there was anything she could say that would change my mind. I thought about that for a second, not because I was considering it, but because I wanted to answer accurately. No, that seemed to land. She loaded the last box into her rideshare and stood there like she expected some cinematic moment. There was none. No hug. No final argument. No collapse. She said you were really going to let 2 years end over a message. I corrected her. Not over a message. Over what the message revealed. That was the only clarification I felt was necessary. She got into the car without another word. When the doors closed, I did not feel triumph. I felt relief. The situation was clean. No shared lease. No shared accounts. No children. No legal complications. Just a decision and its consequences. I went back upstairs and changed the door code that same afternoon. Not out of fear. Out of completion. It has been 3 months since that Tuesday. There has been no direct contact. No late-night messages from unknown numbers. No surprise emails. When she realized the digital channels were closed, she stopped trying. I heard through the same mutual friend that she moved back to her home state temporarily. Apparently Barcelona did not turn into a romantic reunion. Marcus, according to what filtered back, was exactly who he had always been. Charming for an hour. Unreliable after. That detail did not bring me satisfaction. It just reinforced my initial read. People tend to repeat patterns when they are not forced to confront them. A few weeks after everything ended, she sent a handwritten letter to my office. Not my home. That told me she understood the boundary. I did not open it. I had my assistant scan the envelope for anything urgent or legal. There was nothing. I shredded it. Some friends told me I handled it harshly. Others said I handled it cleanly. I am not interested in either label. What I know is this. When someone demonstrates that they are willing to test the perimeter of your relationship for attention, you can either debate intention or evaluate behavior. I evaluate behavior. She did not accidentally text him. She did not accidentally add a wink. She did not accidentally hide it. And she did not apologize until consequences appeared. The Spain ticket was not revenge. It was alignment. If she wanted proximity to her ex, I removed myself from the equation and let that proximity exist without me funding the emotional triangle. There is a difference between forgiveness and self-abandonment. I am not interested in confusing the two. Do I think she regrets it now? Probably. Do I think that regret changes the core instinct that made her send that message? No. And I would rather end 2 years decisively than spend the next 5 wondering who she is texting when her watch lights up. That is the full story. No dramatic ending. Just a boundary enforced once and not revisited.